You'd have to be crazy not to look for this type of stuff when you're outsourcing. This stuff makes us a ton of money all of the time. Hey, it's Don. Today I'm going to talk about stuff to look for. Stuff that people just think isn't out there and you'll never find. I hear this all the time. You're never going to find that. That's so rare. That's so this. On a lot of the stuff that I show and talk about in videos. That's fine with me because that just means that they're not going to be out looking for it. And there'll be more for everybody else who does want it. So it doesn't bother me if they don't get it. But the stuff that I show, the stuff that I talk about is out there all the time. I'm nothing special. I live in a smaller town. Not a huge town, a couple 100,000 people in the entire area, which encompasses many smaller towns into this regional area, Toledo area. Detroit's a little ways away, much bigger, but I get most of what I talk about, most of what I show right here in my little hometown, small town in Ohio. The stuff's out there. And people just constantly are telling me that that's not the case. We just picked up thousands and thousands. This is a small percentage of it. I can't hold it. This is like 40 pounds worth of photos. Now, again, somebody's going to say, well, how in the heck? Those don't show up. You're never going to find that. How can you find quantity of stuff like that? I sell photos almost every day of my life these days. Almost every single day. At least on one platform or one store or another, photos are going out pretty much every single day of my life. Day in and day out. Some days I sell 20. Some days I sell 30. Some days we've sold as many as 90 photos in one single day at $10 a piece. You can do the math. Nothing hard with that. Now, where do you get these? There's no way you're going to find them. There's no way I'm going to be able to find them in my area where I'm at. That's what I hear a lot. You just got to know where to look for these. Now, who would use promotional photos from TV shows, movies, and things like that? Who in their right mind would use these? TV stations, cable companies, even radio stations, magazines, all of this sorts of stuff. Publicity agents. Where do you find that kind of stuff? They have sales. People work there. They have estate sales. You can look up the name of usually who had the belongings at an estate sale. You can track down the address online and you can figure out where they worked at. And then from there, all you got to do is conjecture on what might be there at those sales. You hit the ones that have a higher probability to have certain things. Places like radio stations eliminate their old stock. They go out of business. There's business reduction sales and all kinds of things like that. Now, this isn't just one single purchase for us. I purchase thousands of photos all the time. You can look in my store. At any given time, I have 2, 3, 4, 5,000 photographs, 8x10s of various types in my store. Whether they're military related, which I have a bunch up and we're selling a ton of those every week right now. 8x10s in general do show up. Where would you find military ones at? Most of the people who worked at a military plant who made certain planes or Boeing or any of those sorts of things had opportunities to have press material, as do magazines, as do the newspapers, TV stations, and the whole works. All of those people would get those. Another great place to find this type of thing would be movie theaters. Ones that are going out of business. Ask them what's in the back of their building. Do they have anything in the attic that's been sitting around for a while? It doesn't have to be for sale for you to be able to get it. You just have to know where it's at and know how to ask. I hear that all the time. You're never going to find it. You know, another great place that everybody would never even think of, most of the drive-ins these days are done. Now, I know they're getting some up for some rock concerts and things for pandemic-related events and stuff like that. The point of it is, though, everybody's forgotten about the drive-ins. They're still sitting there. There's usually stuff in the warehouse. I get stuff like that from places like that. It's not some crazy thing to get this stuff. If you don't think you're going to find it, you're not going to look for it, and you're not going to find it. Again, this is just a small stack. There's God knows what in this lot right here. I haven't even looked through them all just because there's just so many of them in here. It's just a horrendous amount of movie stills. These go back to the 30s, the ones we got. Now, cost-wise, you're going to assume this is just outrageously expensive. I bought it in massive bulk. I bought thousands of them from the same person. He's not sitting here trying to peddle these off. They don't know how to get rid of them. You'd have to list them one at a time. Now, I'm not worried about that because these will fit in a scanner and I can stack 20 of them on my flatbed and just zip them through a scanner one at a time. I can do 20 of these in a minute, probably, or less. The scanner does very well. You just set the DPI down a little bit and it would fly through there with these photos. Duplex scanner, that's the key. Having the right equipment can make something like this no big issue. You can be listing a bunch of these in just a few minutes from the time you get home and sort through them. Again, it's not a crazy thing. I hear that constantly. You're not going to find this. You know what else is good about stuff like this? There is no slow season. Now, if you're selling clothing or something, it might not sell very well in certain times of the year. You may not have what's hot or what's in demand. You may not have 50, 100 pairs of good jeans that's going to make you a couple $1,000 every single week. So this is the type of stuff that I center in on. I got thousands of listings in one single purchase. I have pennies, and I do mean a couple cents in each one of these photos. And just selling a couple of these, maybe even 2 or 3 of these, can get me all of my money back for all of these, thousands of these, immediately. Right after I list it, all I got to do is pick the best items and list those first. Usually they sell right off the bat. Many cases I can buy stacks like this. I can scan 40 or 50 of the best ones in there and have my money back before the night falls. That quick. Come home, 2, 3 in the afternoon. By 4, they're already up and they're already selling. That's how easy it is to do stuff like this. I don't have to do sizes. I don't have to measure. I don't have to make sure that there's not a hole in a piece of clothing or something like that. It's that simple to get this stuff up. Now to mail these, just look up here. I got a link to a shipping guide that'll show you how to ship anything flat like this. Just ship them just like the sheet music I show in that video. It's nothing to it. It's cheap. It's simple. It'll cost you 20 cents in supplies to ship any one of these. Add it into the price. Whatever you want to do. You know how much it's going to cost. They all weigh the same amount. I never have to question how much it's going to cost to send these out or anything. It doesn't really matter. This is all first class. These are 5 to 7 ounces depending on how you wrap them. I mean, it's a no-brainer. And the best part, as I said, is that there is no slow season. People that buy this sort of thing are using extra income to begin with. Even if it's the best day of the year for them, it's extra money to spend it on a photo that's just only maybe interesting to you. It's just extra money. It's expendable income they have. And it's people like that who buy the majority of this. Again, demographics come into play with whatever you're selling. So don't just consider this some crazy thing you're never going to find. Don't listen to other resellers who tell you they never find it, so you shouldn't look for it either. Again, I can pull this stuff up anytime I really want to if I want to dig enough for it. That's all there is to it. You just got to look for the stuff. You got to dig for the stuff. And I know I've had many people that are still having some problems to find this, but it is out there, I promise you. I'm nobody special. I'm in a small town. I don't have some big, extravagant neighborhood near us that has high-end stuff that stuff's going to show up all the time. I dig for it. I look around. I drive in a certain range. This is a haul that I found. This isn't from a picker. Again, I do have pickers, but this isn't from a picker. This is straight to me. I could show you boxes of this stuff, you know. It's all over the place. I've got tons of it. Don't listen to the naysayers. If I listened to people telling me you couldn't do this or you couldn't do that, I'd never have resold in the first place. Everybody laughed at us when we first started reselling. They thought, no way, that's some fad. Who's going to buy that stuff from you offline? Well, I've shown them wrong because this is all we do these days. From a small start with just a couple bucks in our pocket to sell something, we're here. So I'm not upset at all if they say that. It doesn't bother me. It shouldn't bother you if somebody tells you you can't do this or you can't do that. It should push you even harder to find it. This stuff is out there, whether it's movie related, TV related, from CBS or something. I find this stuff constantly. And if you're not looking for it, you just don't believe that it's out there, fine. But you're missing out on key opportunities. You're missing out on stuff that's selling for us phenomenally well through the pandemic, through everything else that's going on. Because again, it's for people with expendable income. They already have extra income. A lot of the people that buy this sort of thing may even be retired or independently wealthy and have a ton of money to invest in just collectibles of various types. Stamp collectors are another example. Comic book collectors, high-end comic book collectors that only buy slabbed comics or PSA graded ones or something like that. They don't have a slow time. They're still investing in it right now because big business and the really wealthy are making a ton of money off of what's going on. So you've got a great opportunity to look for other items. It's not like clothing isn't bad to sell. We did sell clothing and I didn't do too bad on it. I just hated selling it and it drops off certain times of the year for us. What I sell now, there is no real big slow time. We do get some bumps in certain times of the year when other things are going on, but there really isn't no slow time. It all depends on how much you want to list and how hard you want to work. You can sell this stuff all year round, as much as you want, as long as you are listing, sorting, and putting the best stuff up on. Bulk is what rules our world around here. If I can get 4,000 or 5,000 listings worth in one fell swoop for pennies, it's a no-brainer. How long would it take you to source enough clothing just to replace this stack, this small stack of photos right here? I can get 30 or 40 bucks, even up to $57.50 for individual photos out of this lot. The cheapest I ever sell these for is 10 bucks a piece, $9.99. Every time I list them. And that's what happens with these. So you've got to expect there's maybe $1,000 worth of return in my hand right here. Most of these are sellable. The ones that I can't sell individually, I'll sell them by the actor. I'll split them up with other ones that I've already had in-house. Again, I've got thousands upon thousands upon thousands of these. I buy press kits, I buy press material, anything. Photos are in all of that sort of thing. Just think about what you want to find, whether it's photos or not, or what you think might be around. Think about who would have used that, what sourcing areas you could look for that would have had those types of things. Closed down or not. Abandoned building is just as easy. You just have to track those down through real estate agents. You can also go down to the county for free and look through their docket books to see who owns which lot on which street and where. You can track them down that way. Far too many people don't realize there's some legwork involved in doing this. Some of the items that I've acquired, I've done some major investigations, almost like a detective. That's why this is interesting and enjoyable to me, because it's not just about randomly going around. I hit key things. It's like if you metal detect. What do you do when you metal detect? You're going to figure out where something happened to begin with. You're going to have to figure out who owns it now, where it is relational to a modern day map versus an old map you may have. It's the same basic principle with sourcing out collectibles and antiques and stuff like that. Records is another area. There's a high-end seller called Tefteller. You can look him up. He's very well known. You'll see his listings all across on any platform that sells them. And he wanted a specific record that was worth a fortune, 10 grand or better. I think it's listed now as the most expensive record or the rarest record. It may be worth like $1 million. I don't really remember the exact price. But the point was he figured out where the factories were. And from there, he sent out flyers to everybody around, people who could have worked there, people who were in that general area. If you want to find a specific thing, you need to figure out where that specific thing was made. Bottle diggers are another example of that. With bottle diggers, they can figure out where some of the old coke plants are, and usually they were on a waterway, a creek or something. And if you dig and bottle dig and probe for bottles, in many cases people have turned up thousands and thousands of vintage rare coke bottles. When I lived in Mississippi, there was a Newton plant, Newton, Mississippi, and people bottle dug, and I was able to acquire a ton of good bottles, Coke bottles, early Coke bottles from the 1910 or earlier era that are worth a ton of money. All because somebody tracked down the information and figured out where this specific place was. It's the same thing like this. It's a treasure hunt every day. Sometimes you have to dig in, find your own map, and figure out where to go from there. It's not always for me about going to a specific sale, even in some cases. I figure out who might have something for sale and go from there. There's a lot more to this, but it's enjoyable. It's not hard. It just takes you time. You got to be dedicated to what you do, and you got to enjoy doing stuff like this. Again, some of the best items I've ever purchased, I had to track down in ways like this, and they have been paying for themselves over and over and over again. Most of the time, I'm only going to go after a big bulk lot, something like this, and that's where I'm making my money at. Having thousands and thousands of listings worth of items all found at once for pennies compared to me driving around randomly trying to find that same amount of stuff is really hard comparison. I would far outweigh my time just going to one source like this, spending a little more time to find it and making a ton of money off that one single purchase because I have so many items in that purchase. Hopefully that gives you some thought on this. Just don't believe what everybody else says. The stuff's out there. I don't care what they say. I'm nothing different than anybody else out there. And if I can crank it out here constantly anytime I want it, you can do the exact same thing. There is no big, huge mystery secret if you do the legwork for it. But that's what I have for you today. Hopefully that gave you some ideas and some thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell all your friends.
I'm street tough, but underneath, I'm a sensitive guy. That's why I wear Hanes. Even us tough guys like a little extra comfort.
You tell him, Bruce, it's not just underwear. It's Hanes.